Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today for Friday, August 9th, 2013. I'm Darko and I'm ready to go here. I might just put this in one little video here, a little 5-minute video or 8-minute video, and move on because this was supposed to be part of part 1. Coming soon to U.S. Syrian refugees. State Department agrees to allow 2,000 Syrians in major policy shift. So we talk about, at the end of the last video, Pakistan and the Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor, and how there could be, all of a sudden there could be, destabilization. Basically, they said Pakistan can be the new terror ground. So it's like I mentioned on Wednesday, wherever the powers that be want to go to not just exploit their resources, but to change the way they live, change their society. You want to create a mass exodus of refugees, and that's what we're getting now. And how do you do that? Well, you get an international global terror force that is owned privately by the elites, and you just put them in a country that you want to exploit, and then all of a sudden they start fighting against the real separatists, the real rebels. And then they take over, and then eventually, when all is destroyed, then come in the humanitarians and impose what they call democracy, and you get the change that you want. And I mentioned about how these countries like Iraq and Syria and Libya, all these countries, Pakistan, they were all put together back in the 1940s and that. In different times, of course, for different countries, but they were put together and by the West, and that was basically to exploit the resources. And they put whatever, like in Saudi Arabia, they have what they have there. Some people say that that actually in Saudi Arabia, what you have are actually a Jewish-run system. Jews that infiltrated there, along with other places like Turkey, a long time ago. So this is for extracting resources. But this is also to basically maintain some kind of control, societal control. And now you have all these refugees being created. I mean, lots of them. A lot of them went to Jordan, but then also to Turkey. It's getting really bad in Syria. I mean, they've pretty much destroyed the place. And so now you're going to have all these people, these Middle Easterns, coming over, like they already have, into other countries. I'm referring to mostly, it seems to be a policy that's done by the globalists. I think it's done on purpose, a clash of cultures, and create division in that, to send them to European nations and to United States and Canada. So this is definitely part of the agenda as far as multiculturalism. I already went into it about the difference between multiculturalism in Europe and the United States, and what we think is multiculturalism is actually not. Such as United States, you say multiculturalism. Well, it's actually not multiculturalism. It's actually no culturalism. That's what it does. And even in the Europe, you can see how even in places like in France, and they want the mass influx of these different people in there to dehomogenize the culture. But at the same time, they don't want them to bring their culture. So they don't want them to wear the veils. Everyone's scared of mosque. And yeah, I mean, they're able to do what they want right now. But you could actually see places like London or UK, France, and even the U.S. where you're going to start having like situations like in Syria where it gets that bad because of a clash of cultures. But you can't blame these people because we bomb them, we drone them, or we support this international global terror force known as Al-Qaeda that's run by this global elite force, many of them made up by Zionists, that create these refugees. So it's a pretty sad situation. You have to at least sympathize or empathize with them and look past the racist bigotry of Islamophobia that you see in a lot of places, a lot of corners of conservatism, or just nationalism, or just basically people who are referred to as racists that want to preserve their people. You hear it all the time, and it's about basically what they're doing is they're following a Zionist agenda. When they start talking about Muslims as being, the whole religion, their race, being a bunch of heathens and stuff like that, and barbarians, that lets you know that they either are shills for Zionists or they've been duped by Zionists. And the Zionists and Jews in general are very, very good at controlling people's minds and the way they think, especially when it comes to the right. or white people in general, white Europeans, they tend to take the side of Jews and they don't even know it. On that last note, you have to remember, like I mentioned before, you have the main three religions, which is Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. What? They're all Abrahamic religions. They're all used for control, for social, political control. So one bashing the other just proves that that's what they're there for, to do, to divide. So 40% of U.S. whites lack non-white friends. Now I'm going to finish up with these other drones and stuff that's going on. I only have a few articles, but I wanted to include this because this is what I talked about. I was just talking about this. 40% of U.S. whites lack non-white friends, says poll, and 25% of non-whites have only friends of own race. So there you go, right? When it comes to friendship, a vast chunk of Americans are stuck with their own racial communities. A poll says 4,100 people find some 40% of U.S. whites have non-white friends, 25% of non-whites have only friends of their own race. So it says even coworkers are thrown into the mix. 30% of Americans have no other race in their circles. Now, what does this do? The people say this is where the big divide is when they say when they talk about multiculturalism. Certain groups, however, blend more than others. Just a tenth of Hispanics, for instance, have no non-Hispanic friends. So this is what I was talking about, the example of identity, or the idea of identity. I was using the example of the Irish Catholic neighborhood in Chicago that's surrounded by just African Americans, and then to the west is just, like I said, a United Nations summit of Middle Easterns, Indians, South Americans, and everything. And the only reason they're still maintain that after all this time is because they identify as Irish Catholics. Once you lose that identity, you have nothing to fight for, which is why they come in after our families. That's why they're promoting all this sexual deviation. People call it perversion, just whatever, sexual deviation, right, from the norm. And then they say the abnormal is now normal, and that again promotes people to say, oh, maybe I might be this, maybe I might be that. As far as marriage, well, I'm not happy, so let's just get divorced. And I see it probably at least 70 to 80% now of people where you say, oh yeah, well I was just with like grandparents. Oh, I was just with so and so, and yeah, they're divorced now. Like what? Yeah, I'm the grandfather. I still want to see my grandkids, and of course half the time they can't. So it creates this real weird mix that breaks down society slowly as it basically dies. The only thing left is science, and that's what you always see, science coming to the rescue as they destroyed our families. What's more, among Hispanics in relationships, half are with a person of a different race. Just a tenth of whites and blacks in relationships have partners of a different race. There are also regional differences. Pacific states have most racially diverse friendships and relationships, while the South has the smallest portion of people who have more than 5 acquaintances racially different from themselves, which is why they're called racist. So only whites are considered racist, even though blacks probably stated themselves as well. That's probably what's included in there. It says age-based statistics offer hope for a more integrated future. So is that what you guys want too? An integrated future? So it's hope, right? This is what this article is saying. So they want this. They want the mixing of the bloodlines. They want the destroying of the tribes, of the people, of their culture. A third of under 30s have a partner of a different race, compared to a tenth of over 30s, and just 10% of under 30s who have no racial diversity in social. This is only a result of the social engineering. This is just people meandering through life. They have no idea that they're even doing this. They just tend to gravitate, maybe subconsciously on a genetic level, to attract towards their own people. But eventually they're going to be surrounded by people. This is my point, to wrap it up with a nice little ribbon. Eventually, people are not going to have that choice of even getting with other people. And if they do, then it'll be considered racist and non-progressive. They'll get, again, science in the mix. Well, it's better. It's better if you just, mix everything that's good for your genes and for your offspring. But it's like I said in the last videos, I believe it was either Monday or Wednesday, I think it was Monday, where I was making the point that, by... You look at how it is now with as far as whites go in America, more deaths per birth, and then you see this huge chunk of, they say, 70% are still whites. Well, that's nice and everything, but unfortunately, like half of them are baby boomers, and the last baby boomers are going to be dying out between 2024, which is just 10 years away, and 2045, right, which is 30 years away. So by, within 30 years, you're going to see the white population go from 70% to about 35%. And like I said, what are they going to be filled with? Well, actually, blacks and whites are going to have the same problem. They're both going to be almost the minority of making up 25%. They're going to be surrounded by Asians a quarter, Middle Easterns a quarter, and Hispanics a quarter. So you can almost see the engineering come into play. But of course, you're going to have what? You're going to have a drop in the overall population rates. Either people are going to be sterile, or people are just voluntarily going to not procreate because they feel that it's bad. So imagine that, how it's going to change. You don't even need to use brainwashing or subliminal messages or all the programming that they do in television and that and school. All you got to do is just be surrounded by, every 3 out of 4 people that you're going to be around are going to be not like you, so you don't really have much of a choice. Michigan couple gives birth to 12th son, so the bride's family still foots the bill for the wedding, right? So they welcome their 12th child, and shocker, it's a boy, just like the other 11. So they say here that it has something to do with, it appears there's some type of genetic determination in some families that have a lot of girls or a lot of boys. It's not well understood. So... But me being me, I always like to see what people are thinking. How is the programming setting in with the masses? 65% say it's ridiculous. That's what I expected, right? People don't want to hear these stories, like octuple woman or whatever. 2 words for the Schwans: stop trying. So devout of whatever religion or just blindly following the religion's belief that God, whichever one it is, does not allow any form of birth control. This is part of the organized religions that I perceive as making their followers behave as sheep. So there's some truth to that, but at the same time, it's not organized religion, it's organized spirituality, which is religion. But it says here that the Roman Catholics who don't believe using birth control. And this is what people say. This chick needs some birth control. You don't have to get pregnant every time you screw. So back in olden times, this was a very good thing, especially if you're, like a warrior, if you're like Vikings or any other thing where you have warriors. This family would be held high up there. And now they're just looked down upon because they have no monetary value. See, they're sucking up the resources of all these selfish, greedy assholes down here. You're taking some of theirs now. And this is why nothing ever changes, because these selfish, very selfish-minded people, self-minded people are always worried about themselves, and they don't worry about society as a whole. They don't worry about people actually being free to do what they want. So as far as birth control goes, I do believe that, there's people that say, they will have to do whatever they have to do to try to avoid it. But a lot of times, you'll have a miscarriage, or you'll have this or that. I mean, that's nature taking its course. That's what I see as kind of the blueprint. Everything's going according to plan. I mean, it sounds sad, but I mean, that's the natural form of birth control. But if you can have this, kids, it should be a blessing. This shouldn't be a curse, but that's how people think about it. Where before we were self-sustainable, we grew everything on our own. Now it's, we only need so many mechanics. We only see so many engineers, right? That's what they call civilized society. Man, I didn't know I was going to go 15 minutes, but I guess I shouldn't be surprised. New vision of Al-Qaeda rises from U.S. embassy closings. So it says basically a transformation of Al-Qaeda, basically the Zionists and the Western democratic nation's own little private mercenary force. A relatively small group led by one charismatic man. See, front man, probably CIA or NSA or Mossad, into a diffused global organization with many branches that pursue local objectives but follow a single ideology. Go figure. They're very consolidated, like the federal governments. Austin, Texas braces for Al-Qaeda terrorist attack. The feds issue emergency alert ordering law enforcement to prepare for attack. I guess they reported on Thursday that the actually Homeland Security drills will be conducted in the Austin area over the next few weeks. At least 5 killed in the sectarian conflict in North Yemen. At least 5 Islamist Salafi Sunnis were killed in an ambush by Shiite Houthi rebels. The northern province. U.S. drones pound Yemen, 34 killed in 10 days. And they say that they've actually foiled a plot. So this legitimizes all the drone strikes, right? U.S. drone strikes fueling backlash in Yemen over civilian deaths. So now, they have the whole thing about Yemen, pulling the ambassadors, shutting it down. Then they go ahead and drone strike. Oh, there's a threat. So it legitimizes it all. It's all okay. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Please join me in part 3. Thank you.